Amid Wadi Wood's rugged, sun-scorched terrain, the weight of history feels palpable. Following the ancient Israelites' possible route from Goshen, the valley's dunes and rocks whisper stories of escape, faith, and divine guidance. A weathered rock behind me seemed to bear silent witness to these events. Imagining Moses addressing his people, the landscape came alive, blending history and scripture, evoking awe, reverence, and the timeless power of faith in the face of hardship. A discovery that could rewrite history. In recent years, archaeologists, historians, and theologians have been captivated by a discovery in Saudi Arabia that may transform our understanding of the biblical Exodus. For centuries, debates have raged over whether the dramatic events of the Old Testament, such as the plagues of Egypt, the crossing of the Red Sea, and the receiving of the Ten Commandments, were literal historical occurrences or symbolic narratives. The newly unearthed evidence offers a tangible connection to these accounts. Buried beneath millennia of desert sands, remnants of ancient human activity suggest that these biblical events may have unfolded exactly as described. The discovery has left scholars speechless, forcing even the most skeptical to reconsider long-held assumptions. If verified, it provides not only a historical anchor for the Exodus story, but also a profound spiritual affirmation for those who hold these texts as sacred. To appreciate the significance of the Saudi discoveries, one must revisit the Exodus narrative in all its drama. The Bible recounts that God spoke to Moses through a burning bush, commanding him to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. Pharaoh, obstinate and hardened, refused repeatedly, prompting God to send 10 devastating plagues. From the Nile turning to blood, to swarms of locusts, to the death of the firstborn, these events displayed divine power and judgment. Finally, Pharaoh relented, allowing the Israelites, numbering possibly more than 2 million, to escape. Yet his resolve faltered once more, sending a formidable army of horsemen, chariots, and soldiers to recapture them. Trapped between the relentless Egyptian army and the Red Sea, the Israelites faced imminent annihilation. It was in this moment of desperation that divine intervention shaped history. Moses, following God's command, stretched out his hand over the waters, and a strong east wind caused the sea to part, forming walls of water on either side. Exodus chapter 14 verse 21 describes it vividly. A dry path opened across the seabed, allowing the Israelites to pass through safely. When the Egyptian army pursued them, the waters returned, engulfing the chariots, soldiers, and horses in a catastrophic collapse. This dramatic sequence of events has inspired generations, yet until recently, skeptics dismissed it as allegory rather than historical fact. Modern exploration has begun to challenge that skepticism. Marine archaeologists studying the seabed between Nueva Beach in Egypt and the Saudi Arabian coast have identified a natural land bridge, roughly 33 meters below the surface, connecting the two shores. Unlike the surrounding areas of the Red Sea, which plunge steeply, this ridge slopes gently and could feasibly support a mass crossing. Divers have reported striking coral-encrusted formations resembling chariot wheels, some circular, some with clearly defined spokes. Metal detector scans reveal traces of ancient bronze and iron alloys consistent with the era of the Exodus. Ron Wyatt, a former treasure hunter turned biblical researcher, was among the first to publicize these findings during the 1970s and 1980s. While controversial at the time, subsequent expeditions have corroborated his observations, producing photographic evidence that confirms the uncanny resemblance between the coral formations and chariot parts. Even skeptics admit that the location corresponds closely with biblical descriptions. This underwater evidence transforms a legendary event into something anchored in physical reality, suggesting that the parting of the Red Sea may have been a historical, natural phenomenon orchestrated by divine intervention. Following the miraculous crossing, the Israelites journeyed into the wilderness toward Mount Sinai. For generations, conventional wisdom placed Mount Sinai in Egypt's southern Sinai Peninsula, near St. Catherine's Monastery. However, the Bible situates the Israelites in the land of Midian, corresponding to northwestern Saudi Arabia, after crossing the sea. Wyatt's exploration identified a mountain called Jabal al-Maz, which he proposes as the true Mount Sinai. Its blackened peak suggests exposure to intense fire, aligning with Exodus chapter 19 verse 18. Mount Sinai was completely in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Saudi authorities initially restricted access, yet recent photographs and video footage have provided rare glimpses of the site, revealing remarkable biblical correspondences. Nearby, a well tradition associates with Moses meeting Jethro's daughters can still be identified, matching Exodus chapter 2. Palm trees flourish in an oasis that corresponds to Elim, where the Israelites camped near 12 springs and 70 palms, as described in Exodus chapter 15 verse 27. These tangible landmarks offer striking confirmation of Scripture, bridging thousands of years of history. Excavations near Jabal al-Maz have revealed a massive stone structure built of uncut rocks, reminiscent of the altars God commanded in Exodus chapter 20 verse 25. Piles of animal bones suggest sacrificial rituals, possibly performed during Israel's sojourn at the mountain. Surrounding standing stones may mark graves of those judged for worshipping the golden calf, which Exodus chapter 32 verse 28 records as resulting in the death of 3,000 men. Faint carvings of bulls and calves on nearby cliffs further hint at the idolatry and religious tension present during this formative period. These artifacts transform biblical narrative into material evidence, allowing historians and archaeologists to visualize the lived experiences of the Israelites. Perhaps the most extraordinary feature is a massive split rock over 50 feet high, perched on a hilltop. Deep channels carved into its base suggest erosion caused by powerful water flow, potentially aligning with Exodus chapter 17 verse 6, where Moses struck the rock to provide water for the thirsty Israelites. This rock is not only a historical artifact but a theological symbol. The first instance of God's provision foreshadows Christ's ultimate sacrifice. The mountain itself, towering over the surrounding desert, bears signs of intense surface scorching. Geologists note that the interior rock remains unaltered, suggesting a phenomenon limited to the surface, a detail harmonizing with biblical accounts of smoke and fire enveloping Mount Sinai. At the base lies a natural rock formation resembling a pulpit, overlooking a plain spacious enough to house the Israelite camp. If these sites are indeed the true locations of the Exodus journey, they affirm that the miracles of Scripture occurred in real places, at specific moments in history. The discoveries speak to the power of God's intervention and provision, echoing the biblical promise that the living God still guides and sustains His people. In an era when faith is often questioned and Scripture dismissed as myth, the rocks, coral, and desert sands stand as enduring testimony to divine truth. As Isaiah chapter 40 verse 8 reminds us, "The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever." These sites are not merely relics. They are a living affirmation that the God who parted the waters, guided Moses, and provided for the Israelites continues to act in the world.